every widow is faced with. Will I ever love again? This topic is completely charged and it comes with a lot of emotional triggers for those of us who've sat in the seat, whether you're freshly new into the widowed world or you have been out there navigating as a widow for a really long time. Today's topic is going to be really a wonderful deep dive into what is the reason that this is such an incredibly charged topic. Welcome to Wake the F Up Podcast. Welcome to Wake the F Up Podcast. I'm your host, Alix Long, and today I am so excited to be here to talk about something so charged. We're going to be talking today about the question that widows often will ask both themselves and be asked by others. Will I ever love again? This topic is incredibly challenging. Even me just saying it, I can feel embodied that I'm charged a little bit. I remember being a new widow thinking that I would never love again. The complicated thing that happens is that we have all this internal pressure and guilt that comes with the idea of moving forward and loving someone again, and how that can even be possible when we're deep in grief. And so today I'm going to walk you through Wake Wellness's framework. It's called the Love Framework. It's a really powerful framework that essentially is teaching you that you can heal loss through love. But we can't really talk about loving again until we figure out why is it so difficult for us widows to ask this question. Will I ever love again? It's the number one question that comes to me as a one-on-one coach, as a group coach, in retreats. It's the first thing that people will ask me when they meet me for coffee after they've just lost someone. And I think it's so charged and so difficult because inside of ourselves, we don't know how we'll ever move on. We can't see past the loss. We can't imagine putting ourselves back out there and finding love again. The idea that when we breathe this out loud to anyone, instantly judgment is laid all over us. And so the outside world is extremely uncomfortable with the idea of widows, especially, finding love again. So today I'm going to walk you through the love framework, and we're going to sit with this topic that is so difficult. And I have even grappled with this and still do today. I am madly in love, remarried, and have a new baby with my widower husband. We have 5 grieving children that we blended, and we had our first baby 5 months ago. So I'm very, very, very seasoned on this topic, and I know that every day I feel like I have to justify or fight to believe that I am worthy of being in love again. Although internally I know that I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be, I have to sit with a lot of discomfort and others' discomfort. And I've had to learn really hard how to allow other people to have their opinions that really don't matter, even though they hurt. So in the love framework, the first thing we would talk about is listening. In this topic today, I want us to think about listening in a different way. So it's sort of like, why does this question carry so much weight? Before we even answer, will I ever love again, we kind of have to acknowledge why it's so charged, as we said. But why is it so charged for everyone in the world? Why does the world care so much about what we do with our lives after someone we love deeply has passed? I mean, we know that we didn't choose it, right? We didn't want to be in this position. We didn't ask for a loved one to get sick, to die, to take their life, all the magnitude that can be in loss. We didn't ask for it, right? It happened. It happened to us. It happened around us, and we had no control. And yet everyone around us somehow has a script for what our life should look like after that initial loss. Inside, you feel just a complete polarization of wanting it to be over, right? Wanting to be normal again, wanting to have connection again, wanting to be able to be in partnership and feel safe and all the things that come with being in love. And yet the outside world literally cannot handle it. They need us to be stuck or stay still. And so why do people judge us? Why do they judge people who want to date again? Why does the idea of a widow loving again make people so uncomfortable? These are the questions that you're going to ask yourself. Why do we judge ourselves so harshly for wanting connection? So here's the truth that we've come up with here at Wake Wellness. And it's a combination of a lot of personal experience along with a ton of studying I've done on this, right? So we'll pull in some ideas that have come from other really amazing thought leaders. The truth is that what we find is people project their own fears onto us. Some see love as a fixed thing, a one-time thing, like our hearts should eternally be attached to the person we love forever. And while this is true, they don't understand that Others can't fathom or find that the complexities of grief and love actually hold hands for the rest of your life, right? So they sit right next to each other. And so love and pain and love and grief and love and loss can coexist, right? So I can be madly in love with David and love the idea that we've created a new family and have this beautiful new baby that represents everything that I've worked for my whole life. And yet this past weekend, I sat at a wedding of my previous husband, Carl, with all of his family. And I love them so much. I missed the belonging and being the primary wife. I missed it so much. And I miss them. And I miss what used to feel as something that I would have taken for granted back then, this very comfortable role that I was in my family. And even though we had problems, I knew where I belong. And now internally, I have to believe that I belong to be in this marriage, and externally, people are constantly telling me that I don't belong, that I shouldn't be here, or that I'm a reminder that someone died and that I'm sitting in a seat that isn't mine to sit in. And then while that's true, it's also really not true, because the seat of the person that's no longer with us can never be filled by another person. It's always there. So you may have listened a few episodes back. I had an amazing guest on, and we talked about Laura, and she was talking about how we have to continue to have a relationship with the person that we've lost. And that even though a lot of times, especially in the beginning after I lost Carl, I was so tired. I was so tired of caretaking. And I was so exhausted. And my kids' grief was so heavy from that point on, because I think they were still unaware that he was going to die because they were so little. I wanted it to go away. Like I wanted the emotionality and the exhaustion and the holding everybody up and the burnout of caregiving. I wanted it all to go away. I just wanted to feel better and normal and connected and alive and 30 something again. Now, while that's possible, right, to go out and date again and like feel alive, and you should choose that, the truth is internally, you'll always be with your grief. It's still there and it creeps in. And so it makes sense that others can't, if I can't always wrap my mind around this complexity that I'm madly in love and happy and still grieving, it's really hard for others to even fathom that. So that comes with a lot of discomfort for others, right? And it comes with even resentment. So I've found that sometimes primary family members of the person that you've lost and dear friends, they build a little bit of resentment when you start to get happy. So, and I think loss is not universal. Spousal loss or partner loss is a little bit different than child loss, right? Like, so there's different kinds of loss that can be challenging. And I noticed that my kids sometimes feel a bit of resentment towards David and I that we're able to move on, or so they think, right? Because we can love again, but you can't replace a parent. And they cannot have their parent back. And so nobody, even a step parent, they can fill a role and they can do the parenting role, but they'll never be the primary parent, right? So that can be challenging. And I think one of the most shocking or maybe under talked about things is that other people's abandonment wounds are sitting really right underneath the surface. And so there's a large amount of fear. And I think this is mostly the violent reactions we see online from people who make comments about widows moving on too soon, to this, you're to this, don't do that. You shouldn't do that. How could you do that to Carl? How could you love again so quickly? How could you be engaged a year and a half after he died? Well, those of you who weren't living in my house might not have known that at a raw age of 30, I lost my ability to have children because he was sick. We were in the emergency room every single week. For the most part, his mom would be the only other person that would remember the count besides my mother and his mother. We lost the ability to eat, to go out to dinner. I spent most of my days cleaning up blood, getting medication, driving. Sometimes he couldn't walk. Everything he wanted to do to hit a bucket list became my number one priority as his wife, and I loved him and I wanted him to live out his life to the fullest. But you can imagine, even if you have that as your best case scenario where we're fighting and doing amazing things, it's secondary to me being a person and being alive, right? Because I felt like his needs were way more superior to mine. And that is true. They were, because he had a limited time. But in that 5-year caregiving battle, I lost a lot of myself. I never asked myself what I needed. I never even considered what I needed. I looked in my closet in certain days and would realize I didn't shop for 5 full years. I didn't buy outfits. I never thought about it. I didn't think about myself in any sort of way. I was giving out all the time. And to be fair, that has a shelf life and you lose yourself. And when I look at my life now, I know that living for myself or living from my heart and making sure that I take care of that part of me is something that I do in honor of the loss of Betsy and Carl every day, because I know it's important to take care of your life because you only get one and we're not guaranteed the time. And so when we look at abandonment wounds from other people who look at me, inside of ourselves, we're always afraid that we can be replaced like that. It's probably one of the biggest battles of mine personally, abandonment. And oddly enough, as I walked into being a cancer wife who was inevitably going to be abandoned, and being abandoned by my father, who is alive today, but I have very little relationship, who left me, and having a mother who has depression, who without her choice would fall under major spells of depression and not be available. I have been alone or left my whole life. And the idea that my husband died and physically left me, yeah, that'll still tear me up to this day. And the fact that my children have those same wounds, that I would have stopped traffic or done anything to prevent it. There was no stopping it. And so other people walk around in the world with abandonment wounds and they're not as vulnerable to talk about it as I am. Because I'm already being judged. Whether I open my mouth and say how I feel and say the truth for other widows or I don't, the reality is I'm going to be judged. And that's okay. I've learned to understand that abandonment makes us be deeply afraid, and it makes us project all these things onto other people. And so we outwardly judge others versus looking inside and saying that the truth of what's lying underneath my judgments to others is a fear that that will happen to me as well. And I think a lot of people think that they're going to be replaced if they die. And the truth is you won't, even if you are. And that's complicated and it's simple. So that no matter what, David can never replace Carl. And my love for him is so vast. And I'm actually a better wife and I'm a better person because of the walk with Carl. And I'm in a healthier mental space. And I know what I need to do in a marriage now because of the walk I had in the past. And so there are regrets along that. And I did abandon Carl in many ways because I wasn't healthy enough to admit my fears underneath the surface of being left. And had I have been vulnerable with him in the ways that I should have, I could have given him 1,000 more times, more parts of my heart. And I regret that every day. But you can't know what you don't know until you know. And now that I know, I understand that when people are upset with David and I for being in love, it's a fear that they too will lose, that could happen to them, and that they will lose their person to someone else. Or that maybe they're afraid of that even without death being involved in the mix. But the underlying thing that I want to say today about everything to my widows out there, and to those of you listening who have judgments in your heart, I forgive you. And I get it. Even my own children had a recent incident where they understand how good we are doing because of this choice to love. But a family member of theirs who had lost someone very close to them, and had made a friend, and they didn't even say boyfriend, just a friend, and they lost it. And we're not ready for them to date again. And then there's that, right? It's children, so they're not afraid but they are afraid that they're going to be replaced or that the person won't love them. And that's it. That's what we carry inside, is this fear of abandonment. And it looks different for each person. But the truth is, it's not our job to carry others' discomfort. It's not our job. And so if that's the one thing you take away today, I want you to really let that settle into your body. Those of you who are grievers out there who are working the question, will I ever love again? You have to get really silent. And listening is about getting inside your body and really feeling what feels right to you. And so for a moment, I'd like you, if you're driving, and listening to podcasts on a driving situation, pull over or save this for later, just so we keep our listenership safe. But I want you to consider what it means to listen inside of your heart. And that's release the mind, right? Release the fluttering of your heart and the anxiety that's connected to survivor patterns. In the early days of loss, you're so in your mind, you're so in your head, you're so into your anxiety thoughts. And those are trying to keep you safe, and we honor them. However, today I want you to drop deep into your soul embodiment. And that's where the mind is quiet. And and not thinking. If you get thoughts, let them go. Let them just pass. See them, acknowledge them, and don't attach to them. And I want you to own the loss, right? So owning, which is the second step in our love framework, is about getting honest of where we are and getting honest with the loss and getting honest with who we are in the loss. And as we say over and over and over again, you died the day your person died. You died. That person can never be because you lost your person. And that takes a lot of work to really sit with that. But the truth is, whether you acknowledge that or you don't, you're never going to be the same. And every thought leader that we bring on this podcast will tell you that very same thing. They died the minute their person died. So if you expect to do the same things and be the same person and go to the same stuff and think the same and love the same, it's not possible. And it's kind of beautiful if you really think about it, because when you're looking from an internal space of how could I ever love again, or will I ever love again? Yeah, you're going to love again. But the idea of love and the way that you were loving will never love the same. You'll never love the same, because the person that you loved is gone. And the person that you were that loved is gone. And so you have to look at love from a completely different way, and you have to own the idea that you are a new person. When you go inside, I want you to just ask yourself this statement, which is really what I do in one-on-one coaching. What am I longing for? What am I longing for? And just sit with that for a minute, right? Just sit with that for a minute. And thoughts will come in your head, and anxiety will be racing, and I should, and I could, and I should, and I should, and guilt's going to surface up. And we have to get really comfortable with the idea that internally we feel very guilty to love again. And it still actually like conjures up emotions for me today. The shame surrounding wanting to love again is very intense, because the outside world will really lay it thick on you. But internally, when you ask your longing statement, what am I longing for? If I would have asked myself that, potentially even in the cancer battle, I would have said, I'm longing to be alive. It's going to make me cry. I'm longing to be alive. I'm 30. I'm longing to be in a partnership where I'm seen. I'm longing to be a mother that gets to celebrate normalcy. I'm longing to make love without a painful body that is not well. Those are hard, right? It's not your person's fault when they go through these things. But I'm longing to cherish life, right? Those are my answers. I was longing to be loved. And I'm assuming that if you're listening to this podcast, you are too. And so when I owned that longing statement for myself, I was able to really open my heart to the idea that I couldn't do many things, but I could love, and I could be alive, and I deserved it. And even though the outside world had a lot of thoughts about how quickly I did things, how we did things, were we ready to do things, all the kids, let them. I am so thrilled to be reading Mel Robbins' books, and I'm going to give her a huge shout out. And these are one of my thought leaders that I think comes in strongly in this topic. When you're owning your shit, you have to really own it. And other people's opinions and judgments towards you, you have to let them feel that. It's not your job to make everybody else happy. And nowhere on this journey will you be happy, will you be able to have love again, if you are going to let the outside world tell you what to do. You're going to get all kinds of judgments, and you have to let them feel whatever they're going to feel. When we say that we're adopting the let them attitude, we're talking about taking back your power. And of course, people are going to have opinions about your grief, about your healing, about your choices, where you move, what you do. Let them. The questions that are going to come up that we wrote down, I had to take notes because there's so much to talk about here. There's just so much to talk about in this topic. The questions that I received: isn't it too soon? I could never do that. I could never date again. I guess that means they really didn't love them. Let them. Thank you, Mel Robbins. I can't thank her enough, because it's helped me a lot. My people pleasing was lit on fire. I used to hide when David and I would go to dinner, and like we should have been celebrating, but I was hiding. I would pick restaurants where I knew I wouldn't see anyone. Even now, I want to post my baby every minute of the day. I struggle so hard with social media because of the judgment, because of the trolling, because of the people's nasty comments or thoughts. And I have to just let people think what they're going to think because it's my life. They have their own life to worry about, right? Let them think what they want. Let them assume what they assume. Let them misunderstand you. Their judgment is just a reflection of them, remember, right? Their own abandonment issues. They're projecting their own fears on you. Let them. This has nothing to do with you. And when we adopt this let them attitude, we stop fighting battles we were never meant to fight. We bring our focus back into what we need, and we own where we are and who we are and what we need. We also simultaneously, what people really don't understand is you're going to sit with that loss inside of this new love as well, and it's okay. So when you choose to love again, you're not releasing another person. And in fact, get ready in the beginning of a new relationship, your first time, to have a lot more grief pop up, right? It's another opportunity to grieve in a new way. It's an opportunity to heal yourself in a facet that you probably haven't looked at yet, which is, I'll always tell the story. I remember David and I's first kiss. It's a miracle I didn't run away, truthfully. Sorry, David. But we both went in to kiss our dead spouses. And so I was kissing Carl and he was kissing Betsy. And it was the most terrible kiss I've ever had in my life. Quite frankly, I almost wanted to like crawl inside of myself and die. And immediately I remember the feeling that I had was, this isn't my person. And I was overwhelmed with grief that I wasn't ever going to kiss Carl again. And that's so sad, right? I didn't choose that. And yet I went in to kiss Carl and was not kissing Carl. And so I didn't give David an opportunity to be David. And I didn't even open my heart or my mind to the idea that I had to learn to be a new me and kiss a new person. And I had to kiss a different way. And it's totally exactly what we're talking about in every facet. And so I almost left. We almost didn't make it. David had literally nearly an anxiety attack. I think he felt the exact same way. We came at it the same way. We came at it with the same anxieties. And he had full on anxiety, and I could feel his energy being so uncomfortable. And then I immediately went to my abandonment roots and was like, no one will ever love me again, because I was thinking, oh, he's missing his wife and she's so beautiful and talented and smart, and I am this not enough version of myself. And now I'm a widow, which is even more of a long black veil and just this big scarlet letter that no one wants to deal with, because behind me is my grieving children and my emotions that are all over the place and my messy life. And the truth was, he shook it off and looked at me and said, if we're going to even have an honest chance at this, we have to get Carl and Betsy out of this room, and we have to learn to be with just each other. And that's basically everything the love framework talks about. And those of you who listen know David's a million times smarter than I am. And he says everything I want to say in less words. And that's just it. If you're going to make an honest go at love, you're going to have to get yourself in a separate version from your past life. You cannot live your old self and find love again. And so let other people think what they're going to think. And even the internal thoughts that you're having, the judgments of yourself, you're going to have to come to grapple with that. You're going to have to grapple with that, right? You're going to have to understand that it's hard, and you're going to feel guilt. And it may be too soon, to this. There's so many of those should I not kind of vibes. Sit with your body, own it. If it feels right, keep stepping forward. Value, that's the third step. This is a really important and under thought of step, I think, from grievers. And it's really about, what do I need to feel love? What do I need to feel loved, right? What does love feel like to me today in this body? If you continue to go backwards and look at something that doesn't exist anymore, your previous love, you're going to get really stuck and be in stuck energy, right? So what does it feel like in my body to feel love? What am I truly longing for, as we've said? Do I even feel safe to receive love? These are the questions we kind of have to ask before we can even consider loving again, right? Love after loss isn't really about romance. You're not 20 anymore. You're not in this young, free, unbroken love. You're not going to be able to enter in the same way you did. And that is a gift that your previous partner will always hold. They're always going to hold that unabashed, free love that you gave them. Now you are this guarded, scared, hurt, scared to get back into it, smarter, wiser, more valuing life, right? Living fully person who's not going to take shit from anyone. So it's a really hard combo to choose love again. And the most important things I think that you can reach for and value is, do I feel safe? Do I feel safe in this partnership to be seen? Am I valued? Am I ready to be held again? And can this partnership tolerate all the vast emotions and complications that come with loving a widow? So I think at this point it's really important when we're talking about value that we sit and do a quick somatic exercise. So as you all know, I use somatic work to get embodied. And I think as widows, it's really important that we sit inside of ourselves. There's a lot of internal guilt and chatter, as we discussed. There's a lot of external pressures. Just balancing your checkbook, just getting your cell phone bill in your own name, figuring out your bills. Every single thing that you're doing feels hard. And we kind of can go into one of two things. We can either go into a freeze state where we just completely shut down, or we are in hyperdrive and we are just riding anxiety 24/7. And I think both of those states take you away from your embodiment, right? So it takes you away from your true nature. So if you're out there and you're thinking of this question, will I ever love again? I want you to sit inside your body for just a minute. And again, if you're driving, we're back into another meditative state. So don't drive and close your eyes or do this. So pull over. Stay safe out there. But I want you to kind of come inside your body and just think about your longing statement again. And I want you to think about it in regard to love. So what am I longing for in the idea of love? And maybe it's connection. Maybe it's belonging. Maybe it's safety. So take a deep breath, and I want you to place your hands on your heart and just kind of sit with that for a second. And ask yourself what you're longing for in regards of love. Maybe it's a hand on yours, a warmth, a presence that is connection, as we said. Maybe it's belonging in the way that someone can see you, who knows you, someone who stays. And maybe it's trust and safety, and that feeling you have of being held and knowing that you're not alone anymore. And just notice kind of where you feel longing in your body to find love again. You might notice just like any emotions or any sensations that pop up, right? So somatics is all about feeling inside your body, but it's also about noticing the messages the body sends. So do you feel any tightness in your chest? Maybe your stomach is feeling a little jittery. Or do you feel expansive? Often when I sit and think about love, I feel an expansion in my chest. Versus when I'm scared and feeling the judgments of others outside and others' pressure, I feel a tightness in my throat, a tightness in my chest. So no matter what you're feeling today, just kind of sit with it and kind of breathe into the space. Often with the hands on the heart, I want you to imagine that you have 1,000 eyeballs on your hands and they're just kind of looking at this tightness in the chest or expansion, whatever you're feeling, and they're seeing the emotions that reside behind it. Just kind of breathe there. This longing that you have inside of your body is sacred. And I want you to mantra to yourself this, which we'll see if I can get through this without crying. Because even today, heading into my 3rd wedding anniversary, 6 years almost since I lost my first husband, I feel emotionality towards these things that I think are what we tell ourselves and what the world tells us. Think of your longing statement. Envision yourself in love again. But a completely different you, a free you, a you that understands how important and how fragile life is, a you that is free and will give all your love, that isn't hiding any part of yourself anymore, a better you, a more free you. Just sit with your body as you feel the expansion that comes with this free and amazing possibility of opening to love again. And I want you to say to yourself, it is not wrong. It is not disloyal. To love again is proof that your heart is still alive. And again, it is not wrong. It is not disloyal. Love is proof that your heart is still alive. Just notice what comes up for you. And then the last step, as we draw back to ourselves, so come back just to where you are. And if you're feeling a little out of sorts, right, like a lot came up for you, a really good tool, grounding tool, is just to kind of orient yourself in your space. So you can slowly look to the left of your space and then slowly look around the room to the right of your space. I like to always land on objects that feel kind of pleasurable to me. It's also helping me pick things in my space that are pleasurable to me. So, land on something that feels good. It can be simple. I love to look out my window where I do this podcast. There's beautiful trees, and I love what we're building in this house. Okay, so when we talk about the final step of the love framework, it's to be empowered. It's the empowerment step. This is a harder step. Sometimes it comes a little later for most of us, and we might go in and out, right? Like the grief cycle, this is not linear. You might have to go through these steps multiple times, okay? And so the final piece of empowerment is what we just talked about. The truth is, you're allowed to love again. Let that land in your nervous system. Let that land in your body. You are allowed to love again. You can hold on to the love that you had, and you can have new love. That's hard. You can hold on to the love that you had in the past, and you can have new love. They can both sit inside of you. You can honor your past, and you can step into your future. I have a whole list here that I had to write down. You can choose love not because you're replacing, but because your heart is still capable of growing and expanding. The thing is, you don't owe the world an explanation. You don't have to shrink yourself to make others comfortable. Your healing, your love, your life, they're yours and yours to claim. Choosing to live your life is not disrespectful to the person that you lost. In fact, in my opinion, it's the highest expression of love that you can offer. Because all we have is this one life. And for whatever reason, they lost theirs. And so you can't live for them necessarily anymore, but you can live for you. And that in itself is living for them. You're doing something they weren't able to do. And so I've got some closing thoughts about choosing love. As a wrap up, I just want to leave you with this. You were made for love. Love didn't die with them. It lives inside of you. And when you are ready, whenever that is, you get to step towards it unapologetically. Let them. Thank you, Mel Robbins. Let them say what they're going to say about you. Let them tell you how to live your life. Let them judge you whatever way they want to. It's about them, not you. Their fear is theirs to work on. You have all sorts of things you can work on yourself, as you well know. And as you sit around waiting to make everybody else happy, you're letting your life pass you by. We're not getting any younger. And your heart has a ton of capacity to forever cherish your past and sit in your future. So I hope this was helpful today. Keep a watch out for us. We've got lots of stuff in the show notes to kind of help you guide you along, some books that have been really helpful to me. I always love doing somatic work. I'll link a couple different practitioners that I love. You can find an SCP practitioner in your area. I like one that does that and grief and trauma. Usually you need all of that when you're grieving. It's helpful to have someone to talk this through, a therapist is ideal for when you're going to take steps towards love, because so much will come in your psyche and there will be a lot to process, along with all the joy that's sure to come. And so there'll be a lot of things in the show notes. Again, sit with yourself, get embodied, and remember, in the love framework, we want to listen inside into ourselves. We want to own our loss. We want to really be present to what is true. We are no longer the person we once were, and we have to let that person go. So staying in the moment is crucial for healing. We have to value, we have to learn to be safe and trust ourselves. And that means listening to what you need and going for it. Unapologetically boundarying and letting go of what other people think about you. Let them think what they're going to think. You have to focus on you if you want to survive. And the last step is getting empowered. And being empowered means doing anything that makes you feel alive again. And that might mean falling in love again. It really was for me. And so being empowered means making choices for your own life that make you feel alive, connected, and expanded. And so I hope that you can find love again in your life, because we know that if you want to heal loss, you have to love yourself and you have to get serious about potentially loving someone else. So DM me with messages. Let me know how I can help. If you need one-on-one help, I'm here. Give us some feedback on if this was helpful for you. Have a great day.
If you enjoyed this episode of Wake the F Up, please like and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Join the Wake community by downloading our app. Just search for The Wake Wellness in the Apple or Android App Store. And follow us on Instagram at The Wake Wellness. Thanks for listening.